Hey, what's up, y'all? It's popping into D-Boss here. Actually, it's Jamari Vet. It's titled One Bad Album Ruined His Career. And it's Chance the Rapper in the thumbnail. Damn. Did people really hate that album that much? I didn't listen to it. I'm not a fan of Chance the Rapper at all. I never was really into his music like that. He had a couple hits that I liked, but for the most part, he wasn't for me. But I definitely know that people complained about the album that he talked about his wife. People were like, oh my god, this is so cringy and corny. Nobody want to hear this shit. We want to hear about you fucking bitches and da-da-da-da. Like, this is corny. So, yeah, it didn't work out for him. So, yeah, let's see why it supposedly ruined his career. Let's watch.
During my lifetime, I've seen quite a few.
Because honestly, I don't feel like one bad album should ruin someone's career, you know? You know, a lot of artists have had, you know, bad albums or albums that people really wasn't feeling like that, but it wasn't over for their career. But I guess the case for Chance.
Rappers come and go for various reasons. Some really have no other choice but to fall into irrelevance because they were basically a gimmick. Others get tired of fame and decide to bow out of the limelight. Sadly, a few have tragic endings to their career. And sometimes a rapper just loses popularity because of a change in what the general audience is interested in. But one of the most rare phenomena is when a rapper becomes a meme. Because I think there is no faster way for the general public to stop taking you seriously. Look at someone like Logic, who became a biracial 1-800 joke after an album they received mixed reviews.
Logic over 1 billion streams. He joins us tonight to talk. You're biracial. It's biracial rapper. In black and white, biracial, white, black and white, biracial, a black father and a white mother.
Before this record came out, he was much more heavily respected. And while he is still cutting some great records till this day, it's safe to say that the general public has made him more or less someone to not be taken seriously. This brings me to the main topic of today's video, Chance the Rapper, who I actually feel draws a lot of comparisons to Logic when it comes to his career. Recently, it was the 10-year anniversary of the mixtape that really put him on, Acid Rap. It's hard to believe it's been a decade since this dropped because I still remember that era like it was yesterday.
It's called Acid Rap because I started doing a lot of LSD when I started on the project.
I was in college, and as you can imagine, this mixtape was an anthem for me, as much like Chance, I was experiencing all new things being away from home. I had never heard anyone rap like this. Everything from the beats, to the melodies, to his voice, was so unconventional that it somehow worked.
I'm off that local. I'm on that global. I often have dreams of being locked in my mama's Volvo, watching the garage burn down. Chance Bennett, a peculiar name. Graduation night, teachers' Ferris Bueller my name. You made a mixtape? Good job. I hope you get a good job. We was all outcasts, only listen to good mob.
Now you have to remember, a decade ago in 2013, the internet was a lot different. And to get discovered, a lot of new rappers were going the SoundCloud, DatPiff, mixtape route. This was also during the blog era where these different websites like This Song Is Sick and Two Dope Boys were really instrumental in helping these new rappers get some buzz surrounding their name. Till this day, Acid Rap is one of the most successful DatPiff releases of all time, garnering over 1,500,000 downloads on that platform alone.
I'm still up, chain smoking, name dropping, good cooking, motherfucker.
And the reason it was called Acid Rap was because a good chunk of the time that Chance was creating this album, he was on a tab and other mind-altering substances. Now, this was not actually Chance's first attempt at making music, as he had previously released 2 other mixtapes by the name of Good Enough, and of course the infamous 10 Day, which was a decent project in itself that gained him some traction, and mainly served to prove to listeners that he could actually make some decent music and really have something to say. Interestingly enough, the album is called 10 Day because Chance was suspended from school for 10 days after they caught him smoking, and that's when the inspiration for this mixtape began. At this time, he showed a ton of potential for someone still in high school, and Chance saw this as a major turning point in his life.
And then he just happened to see us smoking.
I don't know if he's been rapping this one.
Emptied out our bags and shit.
Which makes it even more strange that the album caused him to fall off. It's like one bad album.
He could have either arrested us or he could have got us suspended.
And you've been in the industry for this many years?
Told him he got me a 10-day suspension and took me to the station.
This mixtape eventually landed him a spot on Complex's 10 New Chicago Rappers to Watch Out For. In between the release of these two mixtapes, Chance would acquire the attention of Childish Gambino, who invited him to be the opening act for his first tour around America.
Seems like you guys have a lot of fun together when you're making music and acting.
We're like big brother, little brother. He said that before. It's true. Like, I love Chance. I fucking hate Chance sometimes. Like, he's like, sometimes he's a dick. Sometimes he's an asshole, but sometimes I love him too. Like, I get it.
This would be huge in Chance's development as a performer and artist, and by the time he completed acid rap the next year, he might as well have evolved into an entirely different person, leaving high school, his hometown, and his adolescence behind, and experiencing a life he never had before. And for his efforts, he would be greatly rewarded, as the likes of Pitchfork, Rolling Stone, NPR, and many others would show very high praise for the up-and-coming rapper.
The response to acid rap was expected to a certain degree. I always looked at acid rap as working towards something. I didn't necessarily know what the end goal was other than making the response is always still for other people to agree.
Acid rap also helped him grace the cover of the 2014 XXL Freshman list with the likes of Isaiah Rashad, Lil Durk, and Kevin Gates.
Is there one moment that you can point to really say, this is like the moment that got me to the freshman show?
No, not at all. Everything's like a step-by-step process, like with anything. But it was, I don't know, luck and blessing that got me here, and hard work and shit. So I couldn't put my finger on one moment.
And it seemed like Chance had officially arrived in the game and was making some massive noise out of the Chicago area, along with acts like Mick Jenkins and Vic Mensa, but Chance was definitely leading the way. For the next couple of years, he went around performing and making the most of his new opportunities at hand. People saw major promise in Chance as a pioneer in music, and in 2015, he would release Surf, a free album that he created with Donnie Trumpet and The Social Experiment.
I think he's important because I think it's an independent way. I think what he's doing now, I just think that's so important. And also, I just think the whole vibe of what they're doing, like in terms of like the social experiment, they're all mates, kind of grew up together, they're doing it for fun.
This would also be well received by the general public, and in August of the same year, he would release a collaborative mixtape with Lil B titled Free. This would continue to keep his name in the blogs and help even more people pour into his fan base every single day. This was also around the time that he would get the attention of fellow Chicago native Kanye West, and Chance would even be essential in the creation of his 2016 critically acclaimed album, The Life of Pablo. After this, Chance would infamously say, "I met Kanye West, I'm never going to fail," which looking back might have been some bad foreshadowing, but we'll get to that later. You have to know that Kanye was the man who inspired Chance.
I wonder, is that a play on Kanye's lyric, "I made Jesus walk, so I'm never going to jail. I'm never going to hell."
Chance to start listening to rap music in the first place after he heard his album The College Dropout when he was still a child.
Man, the first album I ever had was College Dropout. Kanye West.
Wow.
Before, yeah, I was in 5th grade, and it was the first album I ever owned of my own. Yeah, it was a big thing for me. It was like, you know,
were you obsessed? Like, did you listen to it nonstop?
Yeah.
So he must have been on the ultimate high to not only be working closely with his idol, but also be considered a valuable piece in the creation of his album and its vision. Like when a rookie gets a chance to play with LeBron, and they actually do well enough that he doesn't ship them to some poverty franchise.
Kanye West is like my first image of like, you know, a free black man in the industry, and I just always like, you know, loved him for that. Loved his music, loved his creativity, but loved his voice, loved, you know, his fearlessness. And so working under him, working with him on his albums is crazy, but having him tell me that he wants to produce my album and come to Chicago and work with me is like,
So Chance was riding this wave of hype like few artists we've seen before. It had been a long time since we saw a rapper with this type of momentum going into their debut album. So people really started to think he was going to be the next superstar in music. In early 2016, he would prove their speculation to be correct with his release of Coloring Book. This mixtape, album, whatever you really want to call it, changed music forever, as it was released exclusively on Apple Music, and this was the first album to hit the Billboard charts solely based on streams. They even shut down the city of Chicago for this release, And he did this all while pushing this image of an independent grassroots artist, though I should note that is heavily speculated.
Chance has made his position very clear. Labels, independence, I'm independent, even if I don't believe he's independent. Yeah. Still, that's his flag that he's waving. He's been waving it for years, right?
Independence means, with an in-house team, you own your own masters, you own your publishing, you do all your own distribution.
I think there's a lot of attention on me not signing a record deal, but I also don't believe in publishing deals or traditional upper management style of, of music being distributed. I get to choose how much my music costs. I get to choose when my music gets released. I choose when I go on tour.
Obviously, coloring books set the precedent for years to come, as nowadays streaming is where most artists accumulate the bulk of their album sales, and it is the main way that people digest music in general. At this time, Chance was absolutely the most marketable new artist on the block, receiving sponsorships from the likes of Sprite, H&M, Nike, New Era Cap, Nestle, and many others. You know how many kids I saw walking around with that stupid hat on my college campus? It was like this man could really do no wrong. He had his own unique style, he kept making good enough music to propel himself forward, he kept it independent, and he ultimately lived up to the massive hype of this third mixtape release, literally changing music consumption forever and leading the way. Like, let me put it this way. If acid rap had lit a small fire on a gas stove, then Coloring Book burned down the whole damn block. From here, Chance would continue riding the wave of massive success. He was winning Emmys, headlining the biggest music festivals, performing on SNL, continuing to do his thing on various collaborations, and even getting involved with politics and social work in a major way, especially in his local Chicago community.
Keep my eyes focused on, the things that really affect us systemically, which is where the law is. So to a certain degree, I have to be, up to date on what's going on politically.
You do believe in making change and contributing to our public institutions, because you have created a fund that just donated, you raised and have donated $2.2 million to Chicago Public Schools.
Which was really no surprise, as his father himself had high-ranking politically affiliated jobs back when Obama was the senator of Illinois. This seemed important to Chance from the very beginning, and he kept his promises in helping his people and spreading a message of anti-violence, which Chicago so desperately needed.
I don't believe in the parties. I believe in people, and, even with all my power, I'm just one vote, but that vote doesn't, belong to nobody. I'm going to make my choice when somebody steps up.
He went on like this for years, helping people and also basking in the glow of all of his hard work and great music, and really showing himself to be a true testament of seeing massive success while remaining an independent artist with full creative control over his career. In 2018, he would head to Wyoming once again to try and repeat his magic he had with Kanye West, announcing that the two would be working on his next album, Good Ass Job.
Worked on Pablo with him, and
fire.
Good Ass Job is in the works.
Yeah.
I know that's a project you guys have talked about.
Yeah.
When can we expect that? Is that done?
It's definitely far from done. It's something that gets brought up in conversation every once in a while.
But due to reasons unknown to the public, this album never saw the light of day, and it seems like the two began to have some distance between them in their personal relationship. After this, Chance's career would be turned upside down, and it all started when he announced that he would be releasing his debut album once again, only now under the name The Big Day, an album that centered around his love and marriage for his wife, Kirsten Corley, who he had recently gotten married to prior to the release of this album. Unlike all of his previous work, Chance would no longer care for the opinions of people he had around him before, like his former manager, and would choose to basically ride this one out with his brother and father being his sounding board for what was basically good. I mean, honestly, it sounds like he wanted a bunch of yes men around him for this project. This would be a costly decision, as The Big Day was met with massive criticism and social media ridicule. He would become a meme, as fans and skeptics alike joined in on hating this album, telling him things like he needed to go back to the acid, that they missed the old him, and basically that his Linsanity run was over. In short, people felt that the album was inconsistent in terms of its quality and lacked the cohesion of his previous work. Some critics also felt the album's 22 tracks were too long, and that his attempt to balance his personal life with his music didn't always come together effectively. We already knew Chance was sensitive to naysayers, as in years past he had had critical articles about himself removed from the internet. So it was clear the hate was really getting to him, even going back and forth with a couple of random fans on Twitter in some very petty arguments. Even worse, Chance was then struggling to sell tickets to his big day tour, and eventually, after trying to downsize venues, canceled the tour altogether. This would be the beginning of his dissension, as soon he would find himself being sued by his former manager for millions of dollars, a man named Pat, who he said knew that the big day was going to be the biggest mistake of Chance's career. It was almost like overnight, his whole trajectory as an artist and potential icon changed. He went from being seen as the people's champ to the meme of the month. And this was all like the perfect storm that manifested into a hurricane to damage his career forever. Like I said previously, it's never good for a rapper to become a meme. And he was never really the same after this, as it has now been almost 4 years since he released The Big Day, and since this moment, despite dropping some really good music, there was more of a return to form. Chance's name has completely cooled off, as a fraction of the people who were previously awaiting his music care at this point. And now recently, videos have surfaced of him dancing wildly with women in the streets of Jamaica, which his wife very subtly took shots at him for on Instagram. And now he is once again being memed into eternity after making an album about how much he loves his wife, and then a couple years later being seen in public acting like this. So considering all of this information, what do you guys think? Can Chance still come back with another great album?
Damn, I didn't know the Wife album was his debut album. But actually, Jamari seemed unclear as well, because he referenced a couple of his previous projects and was like, oh, whether you want to call this an album or mixtape. So it seems like he was unclear. So maybe, that wasn't technically his debut album. I know that can get confusing sometimes, because Drake is like that as well for me. There are a couple of projects where I'm like, was this a mixtape or album? I don't really know. Like, If You're Reading This, It's Too Late. For the longest, I thought that was a mixtape, but I remember looking it up, and I think it said it was an album, so I don't fucking know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He released several projects, and clearly the Wife album is the one that really turned people off, and that really sucks. I didn't listen to it because, like I said, I just wasn't really interested in him as an artist, but after seeing this, it kind of makes me want to go back and listen to at least acid rap to see what it sounds like, because people seem to really fuck with it, and it really took his career off. So apparently there was something to his music. So yeah, I definitely want to check it out. But yeah, hopefully he gets back into music officially and ends up dropping another album. He shouldn't let this get him down too much. Everything can't be a W. No, it is what it is. But I do think it's interesting that he made this album dedicated to his wife, and he was in Jamaica recently acting a goddamn fool. This also makes me think of the Abbott and Preach reaction I did though a few days ago, because they reacted to a video where a wife went on stage at a concert and was grinding on an artist, and the husband was there and saw it, and they were like, oh yeah, this is grounds for divorce, da da da. And I was just like, that's a bit dramatic. I don't feel like you should get divorced from dancing. Like, that's extra. But it's like, I wonder, would they say the same thing about a situation like this, where Chance was grinding on some random bitch in Jamaica? It's all over the fucking internet. Should his wife divorce him? Makes you think. So is that equal? Because I feel like in either situation, I don't feel like it's grounds for divorce anyway. But yeah, hopefully Chance gets it together. Y'all let me know what y'all think though. Let me know what other videos you've been watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.